right, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. So today we're going to be hearing about assessing the impacts of fortified standards on coastal resilience, lessons from Hurricane Sally. And today's training is brought to you by the South Alabama Flood Engagement Team. My name is Amy Gores, and that's a group that I help to coordinate along with my partner in crime, Mike Shelton, who's helping behind the scenes today with Weeks Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve and Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. So we're going to be putting on the training today in partnership with Smarthomeamerica and Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant. And I'll be introducing our speakers in just a moment. But I want to go ahead and start with just a few technology tips. I know we're in Zoom, which is one of the easier platforms, fortunately, but just in case Zoom is new to you, we are going to ask that you keep your line on mute throughout the duration of today's training. So there should be a button with a little microphone icon that you can use to toggle on and off your mute, your audio. So just make sure you stay on mute to minimize any background noise. Then we'll be using the chat function to ask our speakers questions today, and we'll also be using it to sign in and out of the training if you're interested in continuing education. So if you click that chat button icon, you'll get either a pop-up or a sidebar that looks something like this, and this is where you'll sign into the training and ask questions. And I'll be reminding you throughout today's session to be chatting your questions as we go along. Okay, so I mentioned continuing education. I just want to do some housekeeping here so that we're all on the same page. We are offering 1 hour of continuing education for certified floodplain managers and planners. And in order to document that you were attended the entire hour, you will need to sign into that chat box if you haven't already done so with your name and affiliation. And then at the conclusion of today's event, we'll be reminding you to go ahead and sign out with your name so we can kind of get a document of a timestamp there, and then also to complete the evaluation. So certificates will be emailed to you after the training. Give us, a week or two to get those all compiled and sent out, but be checking your inbox for that certificate. And then kind of a last notification, just want to make sure that everyone is aware that today's training is being recorded. We'll work on how to share that recording after the event today, but you're only eligible for continuing education if you attend the live event. So we're not offering CECs for viewing the training after the fact. All right, so I mentioned that my role is to help coordinate the South Alabama Flood Engagement Team. I think we have some new folks with us here today. So really quickly, I just wanted to let you know what safety is all about. And it's essentially a network of flood management practitioners who are working across coastal Alabama. And our goal is to share resources and expertise to help increase capacity across our local communities. So we're really trying to work together because working as a group is always better than working in a silo. So that's our main goal. And we typically meet on a quarterly basis for about an hour or two, and then also try to offer some periodic trainings between those quarterly meetings. So if this is your first safety meeting, welcome, and you're also welcome to continue to join after today's session. So you're on our list now. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the topic for today, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask that Stephen and Graham, if you guys want to go ahead and share your slides, we can queue up your bio slide, and I want to introduce you both to the group before I turn it over to you. So here are our two speakers, Stephen and Graham, and I'm going to start with Stephen Deal, who holds a master's degree in city and regional planning from Clemson University and a bachelor's degree in history and urban studies from Furman University. As an extension specialist in land use planning for Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant Legal Program, his job is to provide technical assistance to Gulf Coast communities in the two states and expand the organization's outreach opportunities to local planners and floodplain managers. Stephen also serves coastal communities by providing valuable workshops and educational opportunities, which delve into issues such as flood mitigation and green infrastructure. Before moving to Mississippi, he was an AmeriCorps Vista worker in Beckley, West Virginia, where he addressed issues pertaining to community development and heritage tourism. And Stephen is going to be joined today by Graham Green, and Graham guides communication and marketing strategy at Smart Home America. He served as an AmeriCorps Vista member with Habitat for Humanity, supporting rebuilding after Hurricanes Ivan and Katrina. Graham went on to work with Habitat for Humanity International and the National Habitat AmeriCorps program. He has managed large-scale regional and national construction and training events and developed collaborative initiatives with public and private sector partners. Graham lives with his family in Spanish Fort, Alabama. So I want to thank both Stephen and Graham for their time and expertise that they're lending us today. I'm going to pass it off to them. And before I do that, I just want to remind everyone that we will have a Q&A session. We have time for that at the end of their talk today, but you don't have to save your questions till the end. So as questions occur to you, please feel free to be chatting them as we go along. And I'll be catching up with them with questions after they finish their presentation. So Stephen and Graham, I'm going to turn it over to you guys now.
Amy, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. Appreciate your and Mike's work coordinating today's meeting. It's always great to present with Stephen. Sea Grant's a wonderful partner of Smart Home America's. I think we've been partners longer than I've been with Smart Home, which is 6 years now. So Stephen, I believe we have a poll. We want to gauge everybody's general knowledge of Fortified before we jump into the presentation. So if you take just a minute and answer, how would you describe your current level of knowledge of fortified construction? Give it just a few more seconds here. Okay. Stephen, I think we can go ahead and close that and share the results. So I'd say the majority know a little bit about Fortified, and then an even amount know a lot and are unfamiliar. So we hope we can bring your level of knowledge up a little bit. For those who know a lot, we hope you learn a little bit more. So fantastic. Well, I'm going to kick off today and just give a little bit of information about Smart Home America before Stephen walks you through the impacts from Hurricane Sally and how Fortified Homes fared, and gives you the technical information about Fortified. So Smart Home America, our name is a bit of a misnomer. We were founded formally back in 2009 by a group of concerned citizens before Alexa could order your groceries for you. And we really believe a smart home should be able to withstand the wind, withstand the water, be properly insured so you can fully recover after a storm, be energy efficient, so you're saving resources, saving money on power bills, and then it is smart. It can then make your life easier and more efficient. Next slide, please. So our mission is to create stronger communities through events just like today, through collaborating and education. And sharing the successes of policy, products, and building methods such as fortified construction. Next slide, please. And we exist to do just this, to educate various stakeholders about these solutions. And we work in 9 states, and it seems that list continues to grow. We're based in downtown Mobile, but like many of you have been working from home. I do come into the office every once in a while, though that's where I'm at today. Next slide, please. So our vision, very simple, yet hard to achieve. Many of y'all can probably relate. We want stronger, sustainable, more resilient communities. That is actually a fortified Habitat for Humanity home in Panama City that went through Hurricane Michael. It's a great success story, and there are several more like it. But that is what we'd like to see much more of. And we know what to do. So in the next slide, we know what to do to avoid this type of damage. This is damage after Hurricane Sally. This is throughout Baldwin County, Mobile County, after Sally, after Zeta. And the science is settled. We know how to protect homes from water intrusion, from the damage that causes displacement for months, for families, those losses that are avoidable. So we look forward to sharing these solutions with you today. And let's see, next slide. So a few more things we know. 2/3 of homes are underinsured. And that's by an average of 17%. So for your average $200,000 home, that's $34,000 underinsured. That's money the homeowner would have to come out of pocket, either with deductible and the funds that are missing from the insurance. So that's very important to know that people just do not have the insurance they need. That's called the insurance gap. Y'all have probably heard that word thrown around. The same goes for businesses. 75% of businesses are either not insured at all or underinsured, and that percentage is 40% underinsured. And then when it comes to businesses actually closing after a disaster, y'all have heard several numbers. It's 40% of small businesses don't reopen after a disaster, and that number can go even higher. So these are our partners and funders that support our mission and work throughout the country. They either write us a check or support us through research and partnership. So we're very, very appreciative of them. And then we work across the board with stakeholders to do this education and outreach. We've coined a term, I don't know if it's trademarked, but persistent engagement, where we go into communities, we work with communities and work with these public-private stakeholders to increase the awareness and to bring them together to find solutions that can make a community more resilient. And we do work at the local, state, and federal levels as well. So real quickly, before I turn it over to Stephen, this was just our high level 2020 in review video that we'd like to share with you. So if I may, before I turn it over to Stephen, a few things in that video I want to just touch on. Fortified designations have jumped dramatically this year. Already through March, there are 1,200 designations in the pipeline, uh, ready to be certified. So that is a dramatic increase from 2020. COVID-19 did affect our ability to do outreach, as I'm assuming it may have affected a lot of y'all's work as well. Previous years, we were able to educate upwards of 3,000 people per year. So we're hoping to be on track with that this year. And then our Don't Goof Flood Proof you saw there. We have Don't Goof when you re-roof, Don't Goof Flood Proof, which Stephen will talk about a little bit more lately. But the reach and impression numbers there from our website and advertising PSA campaigns really show that there's a public interest in that sort of information, especially around flood. So we're very excited in further promoting those two initiatives. So with that, Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Graham. As mentioned previously, my name is Stephen Deal with Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant, and today I'm going to share with you some information on Fortified and its performance following Hurricane Sally. Before kind of going into detail about some of the specifics, I thought it'd just be nice to have some basic overview of Hurricane Sally and its impacts to the coastal Alabama region. Hurricane Sally made landfall on September 16th near Gulf Shores with maximum sustained winds near 105 miles an hour. Over 20 inches of rain were recorded in the region, and it was estimated that $7.3 billion of damage were caused by the storm. Now, I think something just kind of keep in mind is that each storm kind of has its own unique story and challenges with it. With Hurricane Sally, a lot of that was associated with its slow-moving nature, which dumped a lot of rain, and also just the fact that its forecast cone moved quite a bit within 24 hours of landfall. Couple that with an unexpected strengthening prior to landfall, and you have a storm that kind of frustrates normal recovery efforts in a way that's sort of unique. And so, in some respects, Hurricane Sally did sort of impede that a little bit, and I think it's interesting to note just the ways in which that occurs, and a little bit to provide a little bit more information here. Now, as we kind of talk about Fortified, this is a story from NBC 15, just talking about a sort of a larger overview of the impacts of how Fortified fared during Hurricane Sally.
Protection is important even when you don't know what trees are on your property. In Baldwin County, some homes come with that safety built in. As the county grows, you're going to see more and more homes stand up to the storm. NBC 15's Darren Singleton tells us why.
Hurricanes like Sally seem eager to share their destruction with everyone in their paths. But when the fury of the storm settles, some homes fare better than others, and many start asking why.
But as you move between the communities where there's a subdivision that was built in the last 4 or 5 years, and then another subdivision that might be 10 years or more old, it was night and day. It's as if the storm had chose winners and losers.
After years with FEMA, Roy Wright now represents the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. He's already been on the ground in Baldwin County after Hurricane Sally to survey the damage.
In some of the neighborhoods, people ask me, well, which one was the fortified roof and which one wasn't? It was really simple. The fortified roofs were the ones without the blue tarps.
Fortified homes and roofs involve new, more stringent building codes designed to minimize wind damage during a hurricane. It's something Baldwin County embraced years ago for new construction. But after Sally, many with older homes now face the task of installing a new roof, and a fortified roof should be part of the discussion. A fortified roof has 3 main features: specially designed nails and straps, roof decks that are sealed beneath the shingles, and more wind-resistant edges. Wright says that upgrade may increase the cost by $1,000 or more, but that's way below most insurance deductibles.
As people recover, those who did experience damage, they have some choices to make as they're rebuilding. They should rebuild in a way that they know they will be able to withstand the next event.
Something to think about now, because we all know there will be a next event. In Mobile, Darwin Singleton, NBC 15 News.
And this sort of
Protection is
provides a quick overview a little bit. Here's another example, just from Scientific American. One of the things to note, this was from October, is that many Alabama communities have incorporated elements of fortified building standards within their building codes. And these have proven to be important in terms of allowing for additional measure of mitigation protection against Hurricane Sally. And so kind of following along those lines, this is a radio report from down in Alabama, which we can provide you some more specific numbers about how Fortified performed during following the Hurricane Sally.
And welcome back, everybody, and happy Monday. We have an early look at how the fortified roofs did during Hurricane Sally, a highway reopening after 7 months, and the weather this week. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama. When a sure enough powerful hurricane blows through a Gulf Coast town, one of the common sights in the weeks following landfall is that from above, a lot of the area is dotted blue from all the tarps covering damaged roofs to keep water out of the house until it can be repaired. Once a roof is compromised, wind can get inside and tear out more roof, come through the ceiling, tear sheetrock off the walls, and all kind of bad stuff. And of course, rain gets in and gets blown around and often does as much or more damage than the wind. One thing that is believed can make a difference in some of these storms is roofs with the fortified certification. And indications from Hurricane Sally are that it does make a difference, at least in the case of up to a Category 2 hurricane, reports AL.com's Dennis Pillion. A roof with a fortified certification is supposed to be able to withstand 130 mile-an-hour winds. The roof has to be put on with ring shank nails, the nails with the little grooves that go around them instead of the smooth nails. The plywood pieces on the roof have to be sealed so that it keeps water out even if some shingles are blown off. And the edges of the roof are pieced together in a way that makes it hard for the wind to start peeling them up along the edge of the roof. That's often where you start to lose parts of the roof, is along the edge there. Alabama just so happens to lead the nation in fortified roofs. That's partly credited to local building codes along the Alabama Gulf Coast, and it's partly credited to a program created back in 2011 that gave out grants to people who would agree to upgrade their roofs to meet the fortified standards. So for whichever reason, Alabama has about 16,000 fortified roofs near the Gulf Coast. Roy Wright is the president and CEO of the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, which developed the certification, and he's the former head of FEMA's flood mapping program. He said that out of those 16,000 fortified roofs in the state, as of this past weekend, he had seen exactly 0 that weren't intact after Sally. He said that there were only examples of cosmetic damage to those roofs from whatever objects may have been blown into them, but the homes survived, all of them that he's seen so far. Brian Powell is the head of that grant program that helped people upgrade their roofs. He said that many people who sustained damage during Sally will now have to get a fortified roof because of current local codes. He said the homeowner will need to pay for it now, but once his program is rolling again, those homeowners can apply for help in offsetting the difference in cost between a regular roof and a fortified one. Also, for the
All right, and again, that's just a good overview, just providing some sound numbers of just the positive impacts of fortified during the Hurricane Sally recovery effort. In addition, I'd also like to briefly kind of touch upon some resources available through the Smarthomeamerica organization. Some different recovery resources. Smart Home is available through its website and through the its Facebook page. Has a wide variety of resources to assist homeowners and business owners during Hurricane Sally. This includes information on tax incentives available for reconstructing properties, along with tools to help homeowners pick the right contractor. In addition to these resources, there is also information on how to apply for federal disaster assistance and file an insurance claim. This is just the one example of just a kind of a hurricane kind of recovery information sheet that was compiled by Smart Home America with a variety of helpful links and brief descriptions of, again, how to apply for disaster assistance, discounts available for moving to the fortified standard available in the state of Alabama, along with tax credits and other incentives available to assist homeowners in the mitigation process. Another thing that kind of allude to is that the Smart Home America shared its contractor fraud checklist. Many communities might be familiar in the immediate aftermath of a hurricane. Oftentimes there may be when contractors come in to evaluate roofs, some of those visits may be predatory in nature. So in that in mind, it's important as a homeowner to understand the basic tools and have a basic plan of action about how to best go about selecting a contractor. And this is just a quick list that's available through the Smart Home America website about how to best, what to spot in order to avoid fraudulent activity or of that nature. And this is just a quick map. This is showing, again, if you go to the Smart Home America website, there are a number of contractors, re-roofers, and other building officials, other people who can help provide you with resources. And this is just a map of some of the different contractors in the area and who are certified and familiar with fortified construction, and will be able to help local homeowners in terms of being able to assist them in the recovery process. Another thing, one thing that Graham mentioned, and we'll kind of revisit throughout the presentation a little bit, is the Don't Goof Flood-Proof website, which is an outreach initiative started a few years ago from Smart Home America. It's sort of arises out of the fact that over 25% of all flood insurance claims come from homes that are not in the flood zone. With that in mind, any key aspect as with Smart Home, trying to sort of help guide homeowners in the successful disaster recovery techniques, is important to understand the nature and widespread prevalence of flooding. So Don't Goof Floodproof has a wide variety of resources on this matter and continuing to be updated with new information and resources. Another thing to mention is that Smart Home continues to expand its training opportunities to local and regional stakeholder groups. It has just achieved some, currently working on offering CEUs for insurance officials and working on providing them for other stakeholder groups, including real estate officials. So Smart Home's not simply about fortified, it also can help kind of serve spreading the message about the importance of disaster mitigation and sustainable construction through continuing education courses. And also for local communities, there are more intense training sessions available for cities or towns who may be interested in learning how fortified may be applied to their codes or regulations, on how those basic techniques might be able to be applied to their specific context. Now, we've mentioned fortified a lot, so I think it's important to kind of step back a little bit and sort of get an idea and just sort of have a quick overview of what we mean when we're talking about fortified. Fortified is the national standard for resilient construction, but it's also more than that. It's a series of, and this is just an example of, there are two basic components of fortified we'll touch upon in this presentation: fortified home and fortified commercial. It is lab tested with real world results. All of this is sort of done through the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety. They have a large comprehensive laboratory in the low country of South Carolina, where the sort of building sciences kind of hits the real world results. And these sort of testing, all this testing is done in IBHS, feeds into the fortified program and how it is constructed. This is a quick map. This is as current as of 2021, March 2021, showing just the different prevalence of fortified structures. As you can see, Alabama leads by far with over 21,000. And in the greater Southeast, you can see where Smart Home works, you can see a lot of a wide prevalence of fortified properties. So what do we mean when we're talking about fortified? Well, as I mentioned, fortified is a voluntary program that contractors and builders can participate in and offer their home buyers third-party validated protection against severe weather that goes beyond the standard building code. For some of the planners and floodplain managers in the audience, if you think of the United States Green Building Council's LEED program, sort of a similar philosophy in the sense of having a third party come in during the beginning of the construction process who can check and validate and see that the fortified principles and construction standards are being instituted during the process. Fortified has geographically appropriate standards for both high wind for our inland communities and also for hurricane, and offers three basic levels of durability: roof, silver, and gold, which I'll get into a little more later. In each of these levels, builds on the lower levels so that the customer's desired level of protection can be achieved really at any price point. And also, again, more as seen in the previous map, there are more than 20,000 fortified homeowners who are enjoying the peace of mind that comes with fortified properties. So what's the problem we're kind of dealing with when addressing, so what's fortified intended to address? Well, there has been more than 50 separate billion dollar weather and climate disaster events since 2015. And many of these have occurred primarily through sort of roof-related damage. And really the base level of protection offered through fortified, as we'll see a little later, is through the roof. Roof-related damage is responsible for 70 to 90% of total losses, and roofs routinely experience mild to severe damage during high wind and hail events. It also is to be noted that an unsealed roof deck allows up to 6% of the rain that lands on exposed area to enter the attic. And if a roof deck is properly sealed, that reduces water entry by over 95%. Now, again, this is kind of going through a little bit of the wide variety of different fortified standards. This is for fortified home hurricane. As you can see, you start at the base standard, which is fortified roof, with the understanding that the roof is the primary line of defense in the home for a residential home. So fortified roof is focused on keeping the roof on and the water out, and enhancing that with a sealed roof deck and high performing wind rated cover. With silver, we move on to looking at strengthening gable walls and different openings in the residential structure. And then with fortified gold, you're dealing with the entire continuous load path of the structure. So as reiterated in the earlier slides, each level builds on top of the other. Roof, dealing primarily with sealing that roof deck, keeping that water out. Garage door, dealing with openings through fortified silver, and then again, the continuous load path with fortified gold. Again, this is just showing through some of the IBHS sort of research center here. The property on the left has an unsealed roof deck with the damage estimated at just under $17,000, while the property on the right has a sealed roof deck and damage estimates are only around $5,400. Again, if we go look at the property on the left, unsealed roof deck, we see signs of water damage and water entry, while again, the interior of the sealed roof deck on the right is largely undamaged. And again, thinking about some of these different fortified construction standards, I think there's a general philosophy we can kind of glean from these different fortified standards, namely that the importance of nailing things down and making sure that's roofs on, seal it up to keep water out, and to lock things in order to keep the wind out. And that's kind of informs a little bit of a lot of the sort of philosophy regarding fortified construction and standards. And as mentioned, components required by fortified are verified and documented by a third-party evaluator who has been trained and certified in fortified inspection. This documentation is then sent to IBHS, who reviews it and will issue a fortified designation, such as and this is an example of one shown in the presentation slide. Now we've kind of mentioned fortified. What I'd like to do is we talked about fortified, the larger impacts of fortified structures during Hurricane Sally through different news stories. We've talked about the nature of fortified and how it works to protect in disaster events. And now I want to share a few individual testimonials from homeowners in coastal Alabama and their individual experiences with Fortified. And this is, again, a little bit of an overview, just showing the different fortified structures and where they are. Again, in total, nearly 20,000 fortified homes were threatened by Hurricane Sally. We can see through the map where some of the peak wind gusts were experienced, and where many of the fortified properties were in the brunt of the Hurricane Sally's path. And what we're pleased to report again is that over 90% of these had little or no damage. And again, we're just, again, here's another example of an aerial of a residential subdivision. The two properties on the left and the right have blue tarps and were not fortified, while the fortified property in the middle is largely undamaged. Again, this is more within a coastal context here. We can see the properties to the right are not fortified and showed various degrees of roof damage and other elements of hurricane damage, while the fortified property to the left, again, is shown to be largely unscathed. And again, one thing to note is that while doing preliminary observations on the Hurricane Sally, there were many instances found where the observed sources of loss could have been preventable if the property had been built to the higher fortified standards. And this is just a quick, and again, this is the first of testimonials of a fortified property in Baldwin County.
You know, one of the biggest blessings that I've been able to see is myself not having any damage because I have a fortified roof and I didn't have the need for tarps and I didn't have the water and storm damage. As I've been able to use my time that I had when I would be working on my house to help others. And that's one of the biggest things people need right now is help. You know, knocking on doors and meeting some of your neighbors for the first time saying, hey, what can I do to help? And you know, putting tarps up and taking carpet and furniture to the road. I've been able to, me and my family, we've been able to help others out because we didn't have any damage. So definitely feel blessed.
All right, that's just one of the good example there. And here's another example from a homeowner in Mobile and her experience with Fortified.
It really works. People said it sounded like a train, but I didn't hear anything. I was confident that my roof was gonna hold up, and it really, no shingles or anything fell off my roof. It was just like nothing had never happened to it. But there's people that didn't have a fortified roof. Their shingles came off. And that made me feel very blessed to have a fortified roof.
And again, that's just another example of the positive impacts of Fortified during the Hurricane Sally. Another thing I want to mention is we do have a number of fortified commercial properties. Fortified commercial is a newly enacted kind of standard that's been around to deal with, again, variety of different commercial uses. There are 19 designated properties in Alabama spread across 4 different communities. The majority of these designations are fortified roof. And I think what's interesting from the perspective of a planner or a floodplain manager or even real estate officials is understanding just the different wide variety of uses. And so what we've mostly kind of dealt with is the impacts from fortified home, but there are a wide variety of different use scenarios and situations that really kind of show the versatility of the fortified standard across a wide spectrum of city land uses, such as, and fortified commercial deals with places such as hotel towers, condominium complexes, small professional offices, and auditoriums. So, and we're going to go through a little bit here. This is again a picture of Gulf State Park in Alabama after in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Sally. As we can see, the property above shows little to no damage as it's fortified, while the non-fortified property has indications of roof damage there. And This is another video showing the recently constructed the lodge at Gulf State Park. And just their impacts with how Fortified help maintain a continuity of operations there.
Currently, we have approximately 10% of our associate base living in-house along with their families because their residences weren't fortified. The fact that we can provide them with a hot meal and a place to work, and that if you think about it for just a moment, we have over 300 associates at this hotel. Each one of them have a job moving forward because this was a fortified building. So what does that do for their morale? What does that do for this community? What does that do for our economic sustainability?
Again, that's just another positive story to share. And this is another one showing Fortified Commercial's impacts on a more of a smaller office scale.
Seeing what this storm did, as slow moving and as powerful as the winds were with all the trees going down, we're thankful that we went fortified, and it means everything. We're able to help people, and we're able to keep our business moving forward.
Homeowners, builders, and leaders in these communities made choices to build stronger, to build fortified homes, to put on fortified roofs. And you can clearly see the differentiation as you drive through communities.
The thing that sort of lifted my spirits the whole time is getting these texts from clients who are all of our clients with their fortified homes and businesses are in great shape.
You're going to have a stronger building, you're going to save money on your insurance, and overall you're going to have that peace of mind that when a storm does come, you're not going to have to rebuild.
These are the kind of choices that can be made all along the Gulf Coast in ways that when hurricanes, some of which may play out with rapid intensification, as they play out and come up off the Gulf, these homes survive.
And this is our last testimonial from a different storm, Hurricane Michael. This is Paul, and he was a fortified homeowner in Mexico Beach, Florida. As you can see, the map on the left indicates where his property was located. Again, primarily in the major wind zone of Hurricane Michael. We have another quick aerial here showing again the extent of the damage around the fortified property. And again, just another example of how Fortified has really been tested and sort of shown to work in a wide variety of disaster scenarios.
We left the night before the storm, came back in at 10 o'clock the morning after the storm. And when we got in the house, the upstairs was perfect. We had some cracked windows, outer pane. We left the night before the storm, came back in at 10 o'clock the morning after the storm. And when we got in the house, the upstairs was perfect. We had some cracked windows, outer pane of the windows that were cracked, hurricane windows. But the beds were all still made, the pillows were still sitting on them, and we actually stayed here that night for the next couple of weeks, the day after the storm, which other people were going through rubble trying to find any keepsakes that they wanted, and here we are just back in the house.
So just another example again provided. And just another thing to mention is that there are a number of different resources available to kind of learn about the type of mitigations options available. In addition to some of the other resources mentioned, we have the Don't Goof When You Re-Roof website, which has a wide variety of resources about how to properly go about servicing and sort of getting a new roof. And also another brief mention of the Don't Goof Floodproof website. Again, it's a screen grab from the front page, just indicating some of the different resources available for flood mitigation. Another thing to mention is there is the Smarthomeamerica.org website. I think one thing to kind of note about this is that if you want to sort of pop under the hood, so to speak, and learn a little more about some of the specific construction standards and protocols that govern the different fortified standards, a lot of that information will be available here at the Smart Home America website. Another thing to note is that a study conducted noted from the University of Alabama, Auburn University, and the University of Mississippi found that having a fortified designation can also increase home values as well. So in addition to mitigation savings, there's also potential for sort of accrued home value. So, and another thing to mention, as we get towards the end of the presentation here, we're sort of talking a little bit, going to mention some different incentives and discounts available for Fortified. As we can see through Fortified Alabama, there are a wide variety of tiered discounts available and what these essentially will be is homeowners in Alabama can save between 20 and 55% on their homeowners insurance wind premium by building to fortified standards. And this is just another example. This is the Fortified. This is just, again, showing the search capabilities through Fortified. You can be able to kind of search for different service providers, contractors, or roofers who are certified and fortified and are able to kind of guide you through the process. So this is information also you can get through for the Smart Home America website. And another thing, again, just talking about some of the different mitigation incentives that exist in Alabama, the insurance discounts, tax credits, the fortified roof endorsement, and the catastrophe savings account, which I'll go into a little more detail in the following slides. As we mentioned a little bit, there's the fortified insurance discounts that are sort of tiered into different areas. The discounts are a little lower in the inland communities versus the coastal communities. As mentioned before, these will help kind of on the homeowners insurance wind premium. They range from a low of 20% to a high of 55%. There are also tax credits available up to $3,000 for retrofitting, for voluntary retrofitting existing residential property. These are available only for primary residents, but they do allow for up to $3,000 or 50% of the cost of the work for retrofitting, whichever is less. And what's notable is that it can also be applied to flood mitigation. And more information can be found at the link below for the Department of Alabama Revenue there. Another thing to mention is that Fortified Roof in January 2020, there's a endorsement to upgrade available through insurance holders for upgrading to a fortified roof. And the endorsement, essentially the endorsement is sort of an amendment or rider to a policy that can be kind of used to adjust coverage. And basically, in the event that a homeowner has to upgrade their roof, they're eligible for this sort of fortified endorsement. And you can learn more at ibhs.org. Another thing to mention is also in 2012, the Alabama legislature passed what is called catastrophe savings accounts. And what essentially these do is they allow policyholders to sort of prepare a little more for the financial impact of a catastrophic storm and save a little bit more money to set aside. And this law allows policyholders to set aside state income tax-free money to pay for different catastrophe expenses such as insurance deductible or other uninsured costs with a hurricane, flood, or windstorm event. And again, this is another incentive available in the state of Alabama, and you can learn more at the Alabama Department of Revenue. Another thing also I'd like to briefly touch upon is the Strengthen Alabama Homes program, which can provide upwards of $10,000 in grant funds to owners of primary residence in Mobile or Baldwin counties, Alabama. And these owners must agree to retrofit or mitigate their homes to the fortified home standard. And the program started in 2011 and was issued about 2,300 grants to homeowners before having to be frozen in 2017 due to significant demand. And as mentioned in the Down Home sort of in Alabama, the radio broadcast is that program, I think, should be coming online again in another few months to kind of assist homeowners with the mitigation, with Hurricane Sally mitigation. So as mentioned, there are a wide variety of different resources available. And with that, this is contact information for me and Graham. I thank you for the presentation, and I'll just say briefly that in conclusion, I believe the data and testimonials gathered from Hurricane Sally indicate that Fortified is an important method for advancing coastal resilience and fostering a culture of proactive disaster mitigation. I thank you for letting me share the latest news on Fortified, we have a few brief poll questions I'm going to throw up a little bit, and then we'll open up the floor to general Q&A.
You guys should be seeing a poll question on your screen now. If you want to go ahead and answer those 3 questions, we'll give you just a couple minutes.
Yeah, and Amy, while people are answering the poll questions, we've received several really good questions in the chat. I appreciate that. Let me just, I've been trying to respond in chat. I want to make sure I've answered everyone's questions.
Graham, you've been all over it. I do see one that you haven't gotten to yet, and that was from Matthew Barcliff. He had kind of a 2-part question. The first is, has there been an increase in the number of Fortified certified inspectors? I had difficulty finding one that could do an inspection in a timely fashion.
Oh, that's a good question, Matthew. There has been an increase, and depending on where you live, you could absolutely have a harder time finding an evaluator, a Fortified evaluator. Maybe Matthew, type in the chat box where you're at. In Alabama, it should be, I want to say, fairly easy to find an evaluator. Mississippi too, because many evaluators based in Alabama will cover, the panhandle of Florida, Mississippi, and some will even go into Louisiana. Once we get outside of the areas where Fortified is fairly well established, there are some emerging markets, as you saw from that larger map. IBHS has a partnership with Pilot Catastrophe Services, who basically are adjusters after major events. They're insurance adjusters, but they can also do Fortified evaluations in areas where there is not a large number of evaluators. Okay, so you work for the county but live in the city. Okay, well, Matthew, I'd be happy to, if you haven't already, I'd be happy to refer you to 3 or 4 evaluators that you can then choose from.
Graham, Matthew also mentioned that he's gotten a number of public information requests for Fortified documentation and certification.
Okay.
And I assume that means, Matthew, in your work, right, with the county.
In your work. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that might be a good, I'm happy to have that conversation now or offline. And yeah, you're right. You wouldn't have that information because IBHS is the one that holds the Fortified documentation. That's who certifies Fortified homes and sends out the certificates. The county would typically, or any municipality would typically not receive that information unless perhaps they requested the actual designation certificate.
And then another question just came in, Graham and Stephen. What is the process that contractors go through to become certified fortified builders?
Oh, that's a great question. IBHS does have training courses. Pre-COVID, they were in person and were called Fortified Wise Professional Trainings. Currently, all IBHS trainings are online at fortifiedwise.com, and they currently offer the Fortified Roofer training and the Fortified Evaluator training, and they are working on the Fortified Professional training, which would be where the builders, home builders, general contractors, that's the training that we would recommend for them. But the Fortified Roofer and Fortified Evaluator trainings are available right now at fortifiedwise.com. Thank you, Amy. Real quick, Philip asked about the fortified designation or redesignation. So when the house is designated at first, it will need to be redesignated or re-inspected, if you will, every 5 years. And the reason for that is to make sure, one, that the home's roof cover has at least 5 years of life left in it. Also to make sure there was no damage to the home, or that if there was damage, it was repaired back to the Fortified Evaluator. And that if there were any alterations, say an addition or what have you, that too was built to the fortified standard. So if you own a fortified home, we'd really recommend that you involve an evaluator anytime you make major alterations to your home. At least give them a call to see if it's something you need to involve them in. And the redesignation is basically a walk around inspection, and it's very, very low cost from what I'm seeing. And then your insurance discounts continue every time you redesignate your home. It's not like a new roof discount with many insurers that will gradually depreciate over 5 years and disappear. This will continue for you as long as you keep your designation active. And I did want to.
Oh, go ahead, Graham.
I'm sorry. We mentioned the Strengthen Alabama Homes grant program that has. They are working through the backlog. They're getting near the end of that backlog. So we actually expect, because of additional funding they've received, that they may reopen that grant program later this year. And when that reopens, it will reopen to the entire state. So that's something to be aware of. And it is still the $10,000 for homeowners with a primary residence in the state of Alabama. And you can use that to get a fortified roof. Or if you already own a fortified roof, the grant funds can be used to help you get to the fortified silver level. So that'd be opening protection, load path on porches or carports, or upgrading your garage door. And for the floodplain managers in the audience, the retrofit tax credit, which is $3,000, up to $3,000 or 50%, whichever is less. That applies not only to wind mitigation, particularly fortified roofs, but also flood mitigation. So for instance, you could install a fortified roof this year and take that Alabama state tax credit and then do flood vents or other flood mitigation next year and get the tax credit, or vice versa. But I think that's a very important and underutilized mitigation incentive.
And with that, it looks like we're right on time, so I'm going to have to call it. But I really want to thank Stephen and Graham for your time and for sharing your expertise with us. Just a reminder for those of you who are interested in continuing education, please make sure to sign out in our chat box so we document that timestamp. It looks like our SurveyMonkey link may not be working. So Mike, if you want to pop that back in the chat for folks to take that evaluation. But otherwise, thank you all so much for your time. We're going to be in touch with a recording for this event. So if there's anything you missed or you want to go back and check something out, you're welcome to view it again. So stay tuned for that, and also for your certificates, which will be emailed. Thank you all so much for your time.